Hey everybody, John here from Callison Fishing once again for some ice fishing tips today. And this is my top 5 tips for ice fishing gear. For the first tip today, guys, the most important gear that you need is a ice auger. Without this, you are not going to be able to cut through the ice. There's a bunch of different ice augers out there, so you have a hand auger, which is the primary one that I carry with me out on my trips. But you do have electric ice augers and gas ice augers. You can even get some ice auger bits that you can put on your drill. Second most important is your rod and reel. And picking a rod and reel is kind of, it's not very difficult, but you want to make sure you're getting the right setup for what you were going to be fishing for. If you're fishing for panfish, you kind of want to go a lighter, ultralight rod. And fish like perch, bluegill, crappie, you're going to want a lighter, more ultralight action rod so you can feel the bites, and you don't need all of the backbone for those fish because they tend to be smaller. You climb up into your bass, your pike, walleye, you're going to want a stiffer rod, so that would be more medium action rods would probably be preferable. As far as picking a reel, you don't need as much line when you're ice fishing unless you're in super deep water. So you can really go with anywhere from a 500 size reel up to probably a 2000 size reel, but again, depends on the species that you're fishing for. Choosing a lure is also species based. If you're going after panfish, you can tend to get away with a smaller tungsten jig head, kind of like what I have here. I just got a little Wonder Bread colored white tungsten jig head. That would work perfectly for any sort of panfish. You can even catch bass on there, pike, or walleye. You can catch a variety of species on there. For your bigger species like bass, walleye, and pike, you tend to use spoons or jigging wraps or some sort of bigger jigging bait, so that you can usually get it down into deeper water. Plus it also has a bigger profile. When choosing a bait to use, there is live bait and artificial bait. Artificial bait tends to be more soft plastic baits, which range in various sizes, mostly used for panfish. But along your live bait side of things, you have waxworms, spikes, multiple colors, you have wigglers, and you have mousies, and then of course minnows and different bait fish that you can use for jigging crappie, you can use for jigging walleye, pike, or you can throw on tip ups for pike. Usually that tends to be your bigger shiners or suckers. Now the last tip, number 5, is really an optional one. It really just depends on the fishing that you're doing, but is a shanty. I have a Clam Kenai XD thermal. That's what this shanty is. It's just a single man shanty. It's light enough for me to lift in and out of my truck with pretty easily. But depending on if you're going by yourself or with a group of friends, that can determine the shanty you want. There are flip over style shanties that are built onto a sled like this one, and there are hub style shanties which tend to be technically tents that you put out on the ice. A hub style shanty can definitely fit a lot more people, especially if you get one of the bigger versions. If you want to go the flip over route, you can usually fit about 2 to 3 people in a maximum. But again, it really just depends on the size of the one you buy. But you don't need a shanty. You really don't. I would advise you to get a sled if you're not going to have a shanty, just so you have a little bit more of an easy time pulling your stuff out onto the ice, depending on all the gear that you have. And then I guess I'll wrap this up with, a 6th one, if you will. Fish finder. You can use a Vexilar. I have a hummingbird. I have a hummingbird fish finder. Lowrance has one, and then Garmin has a bunch of different options as well. But you can use a fish finder or an underwater camera. There are various brands that make those, but it really just depends on the style of fishing that you're doing. But you don't need a fish finder to find fish. It does make things a little bit easier, especially like what I have here with the hummingbird. It has a map in it so that I can at least see contours on the lake, and I have the flasher mode, so at least if I get to a spot and drill a hole I can look down and see if there's fish there or not. So it kind of makes your time a little bit easier. You use your time better with having a fish finder, so that way you can tell if you're on fish or not. Hope you guys enjoyed the top 5, technically 6, tips for ice fishing gear. Please like, comment, subscribe on this video if you guys really enjoyed it. Have a good ice season.